Hi everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real. Today, by popular demand, we are going to be going over all the amazing parts and things you can do with dandelions. So here we have a good example. We've got the dandelion, and this is a third or fourth year plant because it has the very pointy, sharp leaves on it. If it was a younger plant, these would be a little more rounded. Dandelion comes from the French, meaning lion's tooth, and you can see that these kind of have a tooth-like look to them. So we have our leaves. Actually, here is a newer leaf that is more rounded. You can see it doesn't have the sharp points. Now, these newer leaves are going to be more tender and less bitter than the bigger leaves if you're looking at doing this for a salad. So we also have buds that aren't open yet. Here, some new buds. Here, I have a bud that's getting ready to open. And then up here at the top of the plant, we have a flower that has fully opened. And pretty much everybody is familiar with the dandelion. Most people consider them weeds in their lawn, but they actually have a lot of food uses and medicinal uses, and we'll go over as much of those as we can in this video. So today we're going to dig up some of these dandelions, and we're going to show you how we use the roots, the leaves, and the flowers.
So we collected a couple dozen dandelion plants, and what we're going to do is just bring these in the house, get them washed up, and we'll take a closer look at the individual parts. Okay, so here's an example of a typical dandelion plant after it's been dug up. We've got the leaves, the buds, the flowers. All this is what you see above the ground, and then what you see below the ground are the tap roots. The roots go straight down, and when you're digging these up, we like to use either a garden fork or you can use a shovel. Try to get about a foot down so you can get the most of the root. Just turn the soil until it's loose, pull the tap root out, and what we're going to be doing is cleaning up all these. I like to take these finer roots and just pull those off. And then after I get most of that cleaned up, it's not that you can't eat the finer roots, but we're going to be roasting these, and the finer roots will burn off, and to get less of a burnt taste on our roasted dandelion root, I like to take some of these finer pieces off. So we'll get that cleaned up, we'll pull those off, we'll cut the roots from the plant, those will get washed, and then we're going to pull all the leaves off, those will get washed. We're going to save the flower heads for a tea, and we're going to use the stems of the flower to make noodles. So stay tuned, we'll get these all sorted out and we'll take another look.
Dandelions actually came over to the US in the 1600s with the people who were coming over to colonize the United States, and they brought it over as a medicinal and food source. Now most people think of dandelions as weeds, but the thing to keep in mind is between the roots, the flowers, and the leaves, dandelions have vitamin A, B, C, D, iron, potassium, and calcium, as well as other nutrients. So they're a great resource and are often overlooked by people who are just trying to have a pristine, beautiful lawn. So here on this tray, we have the different parts laid out of the dandelion. So let's start by talking about the leaves. So we've got 5 leaves laid out here, and they look different Now these are all dandelion leaves. I mean, if you look at this leaf and at the leaf over here, they almost look like they're from two totally different types of plants, but they're not. These are all dandelion leaves. The older the plant, the older the leaves, the more tooth-like the edges get. So the younger leaves are more rounded, then they start to get that tooth look, and then the more mature they are, the more defined that look is. Now back here, we have an example of one of the dandelion roots, and this one still needs to get washed off before we dice it up and roast it. But the root is great for making a coffee substitute. It isn't caffeinated, but it does have a coffee flavor. Now here we have stems that have the blossoms still on them. And you can see one that's getting ready to open, one that's fully open, and one that's gone by. And if you look really close, you can see all the teeny tiny seeds. And that is why one dandelion leads to 100 dandelions, because the seeds spread on the wind really quick and easy. Now, over here, we have two of the stems, and you'll notice one is green and one is red. Now, if you look back over here at the flowers, you're going to notice the same thing. You've got this that's just bright green, this which is more red, and this which is got that same kind of red. So this blossom is probably one that had opened and then closed because it was picked in the shade. And this is one that was wide open in the sun today, and it's a much younger shoot, so it's more green. But these, again, they're all dandelion, and they're all from the same plants. And then over here, we have some of the blossoms. And if you look at the underneath, you'll see where they're attached onto the stem. And what we've done with this pile here is we've removed the green base from the actual petals of the flower, and we are going to freeze dry these to use for tea. Taking that piece off makes it sweeter and much better taste. Another thing to be very aware of with the leaves is the younger leaves are going to be much less bitter than the older leaves will be. So if you're looking to make a salad out of it, you want to go for the younger, more rounded leaves. If you're looking to make a tea and you don't mind if it has a little bit of that bitter to it, because you're going to be adding a sweetener to it anyway, using the more mature leaves is fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these blossoms, and we're going to take the actual petals out of the base. It's easy to do. You just pinch at the bottom, go in with your fingers, and just break the bottom off. If you get a little bit of the green, it's not going to hurt anything. The less of that you have, the sweeter your tea will be. I'm just going to pick those pieces out, and there we go. Ready to go in the freeze dryer so that we can save them for later.
Okay, finished washing the dandelion roots. We cleaned them all up, and then they've been chopped into small pieces. They're going to be ground into coffee later after they're roasted, so you don't have to make them all exactly the same size. Just chop them up a little bit smaller so that they can roast. And I'm going to put these in an oven at 350 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes, or until they're dark brown.
So we have taken some of the dandelion leaves and kept them aside to go in salads tonight. The rest we have put on our freeze dryer trays to go into the freeze dryer, and we'll be using those later for teas. So the reason that we're doing these in the freeze dryer this year as opposed to in the dehydrator, which we've done in the past, is we lose less nutrients in the freeze dryer than we do in the dehydrator. So let me get these loaded into the freeze dryer so that we can get the process going. And the last tray has the dandelion leaves as well as some of the petals from the flowers as well. So we'll get this going. Make sure that that's closed. It's freezing. We should be good to go, and we'll come back when these are done. So we have our water boiling and our dandelion stalks ready to go into the water. And we are going to put these in and boil them for about 10 minutes. And then we will get to try them out. Bring that back to a boil, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. So tonight we are having our salad with our dandelion leaves, and we have added some sugar snap peas, some red peppers, and some grape tomatoes to that. And we have our dandelion flower stalks boiled, and we've added some salt and pepper. Now you can eat these and season them or serve them the way you would any kind of a pasta noodle. We are going to add some of our home canned pasta sauce over the top tonight. And this is stuff that we made last year from our garden. And we have some bread hot out of the oven to go with it. So an awesome dinner, things that you can pick outside that most people consider weeds are actually a great addition to your daily menu. Definitely delicious.
So the dandelion root just came out of the oven. Everything's nice and golden brown. They're completely dried, and they have a slight smell of chocolate. So what I'm gonna do is take these, put them in my coffee mill and grind those up. If you don't have a coffee mill, that's fine. You can use a mortar and pestle, or I guess put them in a food processor, grind them up to the consistency of coffee. Once that's done, what I'm gonna do is make a cup, and we can see what it looks and tastes like. Okay, so we finished grinding up the coffee. I put it in a jar that's already labeled for our dandelion root. And you're gonna make coffee the way you normally would make coffee. I'm gonna be using a coffee maker. I'm gonna make half a pot so me and Marilyn can both have some. Now, you could either make it just as it is and make coffee just from the dandelion root, or actually the way most people drink this is as a coffee extender, and you can use it to extend your regular coffee, make it last a little bit longer. And because this is decaffeinated, if you add it to caffeinated coffee, you can kind of have a half calf. It has a great flavor. And we'll get this going. I'll start it brewing, and then you can check it out and see what it looks like.
So we have the coffee all ready, and I'm gonna pour some into the cups. And as you can see, this makes a nice dark roast coffee. The nice thing about it is because there's no caffeine, it won't keep us awake. Now you can drink this black, you can use cream and sugar, make it however you would normally make your coffee, and it's just a great thing to be able to enjoy at any time of day. So the coffee has a good flavor. It's kind of nutty flavor, not really like a hazelnut, but close. If it's something that you normally add sugar or cream to your coffee, I definitely would say you can do that with this. If you normally drink it black, I don't see why you couldn't drink this black. That's what I do. So we're going to now go relax, sit down, have our coffee, and enjoy the rest of our evening. So it's the next day and we brought the trays up from the freeze dryer, and as you can see we have our dandelion greens that we didn't have in our salads last night, all dried, as well as the flower petals, and they kept their color great. I'll show later the difference between what we did in our freeze dryer to what we did in our dehydrator. So today I am going to take my dandelion flowers and make a solar infused oil. First, a solar infused oil is one that you make and put in the sun and let it sit for about 2 weeks. I'll go over that a little bit more, as opposed to taking your herbs and doing them on heat on the stove. I prefer the solar infused oils because they take out less of the nutrients and allow it to seep into whatever it is that you're making, as opposed to just being dissipated from the heat on the stove. So to make this, the purpose behind it is dandelion flowers are great when used for skin irritations, for chapped skin, dry skin. They have an antibiotic property in them, so you can use a oil topically for minor cuts, scrapes, or burns, kind of like you would use a triple antibiotic cream. So to make ours today, what we're going to do is we're going to fill our jar. I have a 1/2 pint jar that fits about a cup. We're going to fill it with what we have for our dandelion petals, and we've got probably 3/4 of a cup packed that we're going to put in here. Then we're going to fill the jar the rest of the way with oil. We're going to make sure that it's combined well with the petals so we don't have any air bubbles. We'll give it a little stir, and then we're going to cover this and put it in a sunny place. So let's get this started and get the jar filled. So we're back, and originally we said we were going to take our solar infusion of our dandelion that we're going to be using for making a salve today, and we were going to let it sit for 2 weeks. We decided to do it for 4 weeks to make it a little bit stronger. So we're going to take our dandelion solar infusion, we're going to combine that with some beeswax, and today we are going to make a dandelion salve. So it doesn't take a lot to make this dandelion salve. You need your infusion, some beeswax. We've got a grater here for grating our beeswax. We have a strainer and a measuring cup for straining the dandelion flowers out of the oil. We have our little pot for melting the wax into the oil, and our tins to put it in when it's done. So we're going to start by straining our infusion. So the reason we're doing that is we want to get the dandelion flower separated from the oil, because the oil is all we want to use for making our salve. Okay, so we are going to carefully pour this and strain it, and we want to get all the oil out of the jar that we can, being very careful because I don't want this strainer to tip over. But I also didn't want to use a smaller strainer because I knew how much flowers we had in here. So we're going to just very simply press this down, and I will be back as soon as we have this all strained out. So while the rest of our olive oil infusion is straining over there, I'm going to take our block of beeswax and I'm going to shred what I need so that I have it ready. Now, when we do our olive oil based salves, our measurements are normally going to be a cup of our strained olive oil infusion to a 1/4 cup of beeswax. I'm not exactly sure how much we're going to get out of that olive oil, so I'm going to start shredding this up with the plan that I'm going to need at least a 1/4 of a cup. So we ended up with just about a cup of our dandelion infusion with the olive oil, and we have our packed quarter cup of our beeswax. So now we're going to combine these into our pot and get them moved over to the stove where we can warm them up and melt them together. The tricky part is getting it in the pan without spilling it all over myself or the table. So we have the oil in. I'm gonna have to use a little bit of persuasion to get the wax in. Now the reason that I shredded the wax was so it was easier to measure because I'm doing not by weight but by volume. So once I shred it, it's easier for me to make sure that I have a packed cup of wax. And there we go. So let me get a spoon and we'll get this over to the stove. So we have our infusion along with our beeswax here over very low heat. And what we're going to do is we're just going to keep stirring this until this beeswax actually gets all melted into the oil. So this is going to take a little bit, but it's very important that you don't rush this. Don't do it over a high heat. You want this to mix over a low heat so you don't damage any of the benefits of the infusion that you just spent 2 to 4 weeks creating. So we're going to get this melted down and then I'll be back. So we now, as you can see, have the beeswax all melted in with the oil. So what we're going to do, and this is an important step, is we're going to take about a tablespoon, we're going to put it onto this plate. We're going to put the plate in the freezer for a minute or two, and that's going to let us see how our consistency of the mixture is. If it's too thin, we can add more beeswax to the mixture. If it's too thick, we can add more oil to it. So let me get this in the freezer and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I just took this out of the freezer. As you can see, it's set very nicely. It's got a nice thickness to it. I'm very happy with the way it came out, so I don't need to add any more oil or any more beeswax. But what I am going to do is scrape this back into the pot so that we can melt it back in before we put this into our containers. Okay, so we have our containers here to pour our salve into. We have it all melted back down, and these happen to be 1 ounce containers that I'm pouring into right now. We'll get these filled and then we'll be right back when I have it all done. So I was able to fill 4 1-ounce tins, a 2-ounce tin, and half of another 2-ounce tin. So what we're going to do with these is we're going to take them, we're going to put them in the fridge, we're going to let them finish setting up, and then I'll show you what it looks like once it's all complete. So we ended up with about 7 ounces finished, and we used up our existing tins, so we have to order some more. We have 4 1-ounce tins full, a full 2-ounce tin, and half of another 2-ounce tin. So these amazing little dandelion flowers have made us some awesome salve that we're going to add to our medicine cabinet. So we're making the salve at this time of year because of the availability of the flowers. Now this salve is something that we'll be able to put in our medicine cabinet and use any time of year, spring, winter, fall, summer, doesn't matter. The pain relieving and anti-inflammatory properties of the dandelion flower make this great for treating sore or achy muscles and joints, and the salve is also great for relieving the itch of dry, cracked skin. It'll moisturize that skin and help with that as well. So we're super excited to have this done and ready to go into our medicine cabinet for the entire season until we can make more next year. So thanks everybody for watching our video. We tried to include as much as we could about the uses of all the different parts from root to flower of the dandelion. Now, if you have any great ideas, any great recipes, any great uses for any part of the dandelion, please make sure you leave it in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you use it for, and I'm sure everybody else would too. And until next time, everybody, take care.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoy our videos and want to help us out, please like this video and subscribe. If you know someone who would like our videos, make sure to share, as this really helps our channel out. Again, thanks, and see you soon.